You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. If you haven't yet, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere else you can get your podcasts from. And be sure to check out our new Range Minded Podcast Facebook page. Just search Range Minded Podcast and give us some feedback on those podcast pages and on the Facebook page too. We're always looking to improve the show for you. This is episode 29, which is a listener-requested episode. It's on concealed carry on college campuses from our friend Todd in Kansas. Steve, Ricky, and I are reunited, and we go over the basics of campus carry, give our opinions on it, which, as always, are only our own opinions and that of nobody else, nor Independence Indoor Shooting. And then we answer our friend Todd's question about carrying with a round in the chamber, because his college policy is that they can't carry with a round in the chamber, which also leads us to a discussion on general concealed carry philosophy. This is actually a real fun conversation to have, so I think you're going to enjoy it. And as always, thank you for listening to Range Minded. We hope you enjoy episode 29, the Campus Carry Debate. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting, episode number 29.
Kiddos. Welcome back.
Hello.
With Steve Zimmerman with two N's.
That's
and
right.
And Ricky Kasner with a Y, not an I-E. And myself, Mark Long.
Do you think Ricky always says that, like, why?
What, just about life in general?
Just kidding, Ricky, man. Don't take it so serious.
I only have one N in my last name. Does that make me bad?
No.
No.
I only have one N, too. And, but you have an S, not a Z.
That's right.
So it's important to know.
You can't say Kasner. You have to say Kastner.
What nationality is Kasner, anyway?
I'm finding that it's Czechoslovakian. I'm just playing. No, just playing. No, actually German. I believe it's German.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
but I haven't.
So you're having an Elizabeth Warren moment? Is that what it is? I believe that I'm German, so I'm German.
Oh, dear. Nah, let's not. Politics already? We're not even 2 minutes into it, for crying out loud.
No,
It's
but
just too fun to not.
I haven't been able to get across the ocean on my genealogy yet, but I believe it's German.
Would you ever do one of those 23andMe things?
What?
The DNA test?
Yeah, a DNA test.
I've been tempted.
I know Steve wouldn't. I almost guarantee Steve wouldn't.
I don't need to. I already know my nationality.
I'm
50% American.
Oh, that's right.
50% German.
That's right.
So you're 50% mutt.
No. I'm 100% American, actually, I should say.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's
You're
just-
100% free.
But 50% of me came from the old country.
There you go. From the fatherland.
Yep.
I'm nearly all British Isles. What are you?
Oh. English, Irish, German, and I believe actually a little Czechoslovakian thrown in there. And some Welsh, I think. So really, yeah, British Isles, Anglo-Saxon to the max. Yeah. I kind of do want to try one of those 23andMe things. I think that'd be interesting to see.
Maybe we should do it as the three of us do it one day just for fun.
That'd be interesting.
That would be our podcast.
I wonder how
The
much.
non-sequitur episode.
Are they expensive?
It's like $90 or something.
It's less than $100 compared to the to shooting. It's not that expensive.
Screw that. That's ammo money.
Yeah, right. So actually, first and foremost, before we get started today, we have to give a shout out and dedicate this episode to our buddy Todd from Kansas, not Kentucky.
Did you guys say Kentucky last time or what?
Well, he just
Yeah,
said something. We weren't sure it was. He said, Mark's like, it's a K-state.
I was right about that. And it was Kansas, not Kentucky, because I actually emailed. Well, Ricky, you emailed him and said thank you.
Does he
And so
just
we
have
got
does he have a Kansas email, or is he honestly from Kansas?
I believe it's just a
No,
Kansas.
he's
going to
currently
school.
going to school in Kansas.
Yeah, so
I
we
don't
don't-
know where he's from.
Yeah, we don't know where he's at.
Maybe
but-
he should tell us one day where he's from. We can ask him.
wait.
We can ask him his nationality.
Yeah, maybe we could send him a 23andMe kit. But no, I actually emailed him too, and just wanted to ask some questions about how he found the podcast and everything. And he reminded me that it was Kansas and not Kentucky, so I was corrected that way.
So he has more teeth.
Yes. Kansas is just a lot of
Hey,
corn.
you don't know how many people are listening to us in Kentucky. You just offended all our listeners.
That's
No,
what Steve
I
does.
appropriated. I didn't offend. I appropriated.
Oh, how dare you?
You know.
So anyway, this episode is Campus Carry, and it's dedicated to
Speaking
Todd.
of which, do you know how come you we know that the toothbrush wasn't invented in the South?
Oh, no. Tell me.
Because it's called it was invented in the South because it's called a toothbrush, not a teeth brush.
I didn't realize that you didn't like the South so much.
Oh, I love the South.
That's a different world, just like Idaho. Idaho's its own special world.
No, Idaho is special.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't like that joke, huh, Ricky?
It just like all things, it took me a little while to understand what was going on.
So we're right back to normal, if you can't tell.
And it's back to square one. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, this one's for you. You're our buddy. Thanks for listening.
Todd.
So he just found us, I think a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago, and he's already blasted through all of our episodes. He's caught up.
We are being binged.
Which means we need more episodes because we don't want people to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, we don't. Well, we don't want Todd to get bored. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so we're doing this solely for Todd right now.
Yeah, right. So
and Todd, you should be paying attention and studying, not listening to our podcast.
Well, I think he studies separately. He says in between classes when he's cooking, that kind of stuff. Okay. So, and he likes and he actually enjoys Steve's humor. So surprisingly,
did he honestly say that?
He, not specifically, but he said that we were funny. He
alluded to it.
Yeah. I was thinking if there was anyone we were ever going to get rid of, it was going to be Steve. But now that just destroyed me.
It's like a bad penny, man. It's like a bad penny.
We tried already. I mean, we moved him all the way across the state, and
and he's like, I can be online.
Yeah.
So, so this one's about campus carry. Todd is a student at a
Kansas City.
Jeez, Kentucky.
Kansas State University, KSU.
Is it KSU?
I believe, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, Todd, if we got that wrong. What does it say?
No, that's just where I was looking. So if you look at no. Anyway, where I was looking at the
he's in Kansas and he wanted to talk about campus carry and he actually emailed us some
KU.
Okay, Kansas University. So he emailed us some information about his campus's weapons
He's
policy.
from Kansas State, right? That's where he's going, Kansas State.
Oh my God, we're going back and forth on that. I believe
we need to understand.
Sorry, Todd. This is going to be the episode. We're just going to be figuring out where you're at.
Yeah,
I don't want him. I've already offended 99% of the South. I don't need to offend Todd.
No, I'm going to find this because it's KU, Kansas University, because Ricky sent it to me.
Okay.
So ku.edu is where you can find this stuff. But I thought it was interesting because they have a whole section on concealed carry. And I really didn't know much about campus carry. I kind of gave myself a crash course. And it really, like all gun laws, varies from state to state. Mm-hmm. And some places will let you carry no matter what. Some places won't let you carry at all, and some states let the individual campuses decide. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And
I want to read Todd's email really quick.
Okay, let's start there.
So
don't make it boring. You gotta read it to where he can even be entertained.
Okay. Let's read this.
Take your time.
As a 27-year-old, I am finally catching up with technology and started listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
I have plenty of time in between classes to listen and found your podcast about a week ago. I downloaded everything you have produced so far, and I'm currently listening to your 4th of July episode. As I typed this, that was when we were talking about the Kentucky long rifle. And all that.
We went through the history of U.S. Armaments and believe service rifles. And so we got this email last week, and he's already from July to now.
Okay.
So he has a lot of time on his hands.
I love the podcast so far. I figured I'd reach out to you guys for a possible topic to cover one day, unless you have covered it in a newer episode. The topic is campus carry. Attached on the bottom of this message is my school's weapon policy. I figured I'd message you about this topic because in episode 12, I heard you discuss that one shouldn't carry a gun without a round chambered, which I agree to completely. However, in the policy set at my school, so this is important word, policy.
Yeah, it's policy, not law.
Set at my school, we are not allowed to have a round chambered on campus, so parentheses, hammer must fall on an empty chamber if carried in a revolver. What is your take on campus carry and carrying in an amber status, if that's the policy set for an individual? So anyway,
you forgot the best part.
Oh, sorry. Again, thanks for the awesome podcast. Hope to hear back with your feedback.
There we go.
There we go.
We're going to pat ourselves on the back a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of hurts the arm if you do it too much.
Right there. Just did it for everybody.
I can reach way back. I'm used to it. Patting myself on the back and brushing my shoulder off. I can do that too. Good.
Ricky's got a lot of self-confidence today.
Hey, I heard you guys missing me last week.
We did.
I listened to the podcast.
There was sad music and everything.
Yeah.
Campus carry and different policies. Steve and I actually spent a lot of time last week talking about why you should always carry with a round in the chamber. We just went over that again. Mm-hmm. And mainly, and Steve, feel free to jump in, but we talked about how it takes that much more time to rack this, like to not only just clear the gun, but rack the slide once it's out, and then bring your gun to target rather than just having it ready to go.
So this is a quiz for Steve and Mark. Mm-hmm. I sent you guys an email last minute.
Yes, I watched it.
Active self-protection with John Correa. He does an awesome job. Basically, just debriefing on surveillance videos that are real world self-defense situations.
And I think we've talked about him before. He does an amazing job of diagnosing and dissecting a lot of those situations, defensive situations, and going through step by step, and then he puts the logic behind why he feels that way, which I think is awesome. And so if you guys haven't watched any of John Correa's videos, you need to find them down on YouTube and binge watch those too. There's a lot of cool information.
We will post the video with the podcast as we usually do. So,
and John Correa. So the reason I brought it up is he goes into why carry one in the chamber. Generally speaking, and I know there's different ways of racking a slide if you have all your wits about you. But in the real world, how many hands does it usually take to rack a slide?
Two.
And if
you got good sights, you can use your belt or your shoe, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Or if you have a VP9, you can use your belt or your shoe as well, because it's got those wings on it.
Those are kind of. That's kind of what they're for. But
they're for one-handed racking of the slide.
They're for slingshotting.
Yeah, but here's, obviously you need to carry one in the round, carry one in the chamber, no matter what. Mm-hmm. If you're going to school or whatever, or maybe a situation where you can't, what do you do? I guess that's the big question. And the other question I have too is, how is somebody going to know? Unless you're like getting pulled over or busted by somebody, there's a whole FAQ that Kansas University has about, what do I do if I see somebody printing, basically, or is it illegal for this? It's to their credit, it's a very comprehensive FAQ, and we'll post that on the podcast page as well. But one of the questions was what do I do if I see somebody printing? Nothing. It's legal. It's fine. Mm-hmm. So I'm basically the whole thing about concealed carry is that you're not supposed to know who's carrying and not. And they go into a lot of detail about how you can't ask, how there's no special training that the school has to provide or any kind of safety course. It's the law, and they have to follow the law.
They can't just even an officer can't just pull you aside and just start frisking you without a reason to do so.
Right.
A cause.
It has been allowed in some states. New York City did it. It's called stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk, which I think is not legal anymore, right?
They stopped it. They postponed it. I don't think they ever decided to get rid of it completely. Now, Chicago, President Trump said, hey, you guys, he was visited with the National Sheriff's Association or whatever a few weeks ago, and to the Chicago sheriffs, he said, you guys need to re-implement the stop and frisk, which obviously garnered a lot of negative attention. But that being said, though, I feel it is wrong. I think it's unconstitutional. It definitely curbed crime in New York City. That being said.
it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. It's like, is that the only way to curb crime and all that, but you balance that between individual liberties, because if you have no probable cause and it's an unreasonable search and seizure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other problem is if we allow them to take little bits of our freedoms, they're going to eventually take all of them.
It's bloodshed that'll get it back, and that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah. So, but that was my whole point, was that, okay, at a college campus, if it's first of all, it's your policy, not the law. Yeah. So, but how are you going to know if you don't even know somebody's carrying in the first place? How are you going to know somebody's carrying with one in the chamber?
Yeah. Well, even though you're talking about policy for the school, it could easily result of him getting ejected from the school if he violates policy. Oh yeah, you could get expelled for that, no problem.
So let's talk about that really quick. I want to dive into really the policy. So at the first, on the introduction, I want to read the.
Oh, you have the policy as well?
Yeah,
I've got it up on my computer.
I printed out the pertinent parts.
Well, it's my turn to read. You read last,
you read
so I'm going to read.
You read the introduction.
Especially because this is really dry stuff, so I got to spice it up.
Oh, it's super boring. Yeah, can you read it in your radio voice?
Yes, I can. All right, ready?
Switch it on.
Kansas State University prohibits the possession and use of firearms, explosives, and other weapons on any university campus, with certain limited exceptions, which include use of weapons as part of approved university programs, use of weapons by law enforcement personnel, and the lawful concealed carrying of handguns as provided below. This policy is in accordance with Kansas Board of Regents Board Policy by State Law, KSA 75-7C01 Act Sequitur. I don't know. It's Latin.
Well, and so I think that's important. This can scare a lot of people because they say, this policy is in accordance with state law. So they're like, this is law.
Oh, so I see it gets easily confused.
Yeah, it could get really, really confusing. And so I had to look up, is it state law that you can't carry one in the chamber on college campuses? That's ridiculous. First of all, I actually was reading through this policy, and I was like, dude, Kansas got it together. Yeah. Except for that one thing. Actually, there's two things, and I want to fast forward to the paragraph. Go ahead and read that paragraph in here.
Okay. Oh, I get to read it again. All right. Every handgun carried by an individual, whether on their person or in a carrier, must be secured in a holster that completely covers the trigger and the entire trigger guard area, and that secures any external hammer in an uncocked position. The handgun must be secured in the holster with a strap or by other means of retention. Interesting. The holster must have sufficient tension or grip on the handgun to retain it in the holster, even when subjected to unexpected jostling. Handguns with an external safety must be carried with the safety in the on position. Semi-automatic handguns must be carried without a chambered round of ammunition. Revolvers must be carried with the hammer resting on an empty chamber.
Okay.
Now, is that the law or policy?
That's policy.
Right.
So there's a couple things in here that let's just say somebody saw your gun and you have the gun out there now being displayed for everybody. There's a couple things in here. It said the hammer, if you have an external hammer in an uncocked, or it needs to be in an uncocked position.
So the hammer's got to be down.
So I love 1911s. I love things with hammers, but is that a reason why to have maybe a striker fire instead of something with an external hammer? Sure. And then it talked about anything with a safety. External safety needs to be with it in the on position.
So better to not have a safety.
And in some of those, in 1911, you can't, or some of these guns, you can't put the safety on if you don't have the hammer cocked, because it's supposed to be cocked to have the safety on. So you can't even follow this policy.
It sounds like University of Kansas is encouraging people to buy Glocks.
Yeah, buy Glock striker fire guns.
Or Walthers, like I have on my hip right now, because I just got done RSOing.
Not Walthers, no.
I was going to say, actually...
They want the firearm to function.
Functions just freaking fine, thank you very much. But what I was going to say, too, the other thing was the holster with the... And you probably were going to get to this next, was the retention, right?
Yeah, so it talked about a strap. Now...
So you need level 2 retention, is what it's saying.
The handgun must be secured in a holster with a strap or other means of retention. No,
just some kind of positive retention.
Yeah. Okay. So just a regular Kydex holster, but you can't just have a regular hybrid holster that doesn't really.
So you
retain
can't
it.
even
Or like
you
an
can't
Uncle
even
Mike's.
if you're carrying like an LCP or something, you can't pocket carry because that holster, hopefully you have something covering the trigger guard, doesn't have any kind of a strap.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
And if you're gonna go break dancing, you may leave your gun at home.
You know,
Well,
I could
that-
break dance in my Safariland GLS right here with that lock because that thing's not coming out ever.
It's only the ATF agents that dance with guns in their pantses,
And drop them. I do remember that.
And shoot the person next to them.
Yep. Well,
Now-
they're trained to do it. That's why.
Now, so
Oh.
that's those two things: the safety on the external hammer. To me, I'm like you said, Mark. They should never even know you have a gun. There's a reason why you're carrying a concealed firearm, right?
Concealed.
Right.
It's concealed.
It's concealed means concealed.
So if you have that hammer cocked,
Yeah.
and you don't, well, I mean, if the hammer's cocked, you need to have the safety on. That's how they're designed to be carried. But yeah, I mean, you're breaking policy. You're not breaking law.
Right.
Now, this is my issue because I went to a private college as well for my bachelor's, and it was against their policy to carry a firearm. Period.
Okay.
You can't even have one.
Sure.
So
Highly disagree with that policy.
yeah. So now, but here's the thing: would you rather be kicked out of school, or would you rather be alive? So, I mean, does that make sense?
It's one of those where they're asking for forgiveness or permission.
I'd rather be able to protect myself than,
Sure.
And risk the possibility I maybe get expelled from school.
But that's one of the things, actually, that I was going to bring up was that a public university versus a private university can set whatever rules they want and whatever policies they want. So it's whether or not you agree with it, unfortunately, it's within their rights. And, obviously you should have a right, to defend yourself wherever you go. But,
You would think that the private universities wouldn't, because in my perspective, right, if they're keeping me from carrying a firearm, that's dancing on a constitutional right. They allow people to speak freely, do they not? And I can write whatever I want, so I already have freedom of speech in there, and I can post up in a campus and protest anything I want, whether for or against whatever thing. But when it comes to the firearm, they won't let that happen. It's interesting.
Well, I think you it's one of those things where you treat it as a business, where maybe it's within the law, but it's against their policy. Same thing, where a business can say this is a gun-free zone, and we have. I know you don't like it, but that's kind of where I think the facts lie.
Yeah, you're right. And I also believe that private institutions have the ability to set their own protocols.
Sure.
Within reason.
I want to address that before we go on to the no round in the chamber, because that's Todd's main focus right there. Mm-hmm. But before that, I really want to give props to Kansas.
Yeah, they got it together, like you said.
The private school that I went to, like I mentioned, it didn't allow firearms at all. This is in Idaho, which Idaho actually they just passed recently. It was 2016. Mm-hmm. The 1st of July 2016 they passed to where you could carry on state campuses.
Unrestricted now too.
Is it fully unrestricted?
Because they used to not be able to carry in some of the buildings.
Yeah, you can't carry in dorms, and you can't carry, or at least you couldn't. You couldn't carry in dorms, and you couldn't carry in events larger than 1,000 people.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know if are you saying that they changed it or
no? I just when I was looking up the different laws per the states, is that like I said earlier, there's 3 different kind of categories where it's allowed, it's banned, and then there's some kind of in between. And at least Idaho, it was allowed.
Okay,
so
yeah, and I see, but Kansas has no such. They can carry it specifically says in the policy that they can have it in their dorm rooms. Any residence that is their residence, as long as it's in a safe, which I don't think is unreasonable at all, to have it in a locked safe. It can't be out in the open, but they can have it in their dorms. I think that's awesome. They can carry it in events. It doesn't say anything, at least that I read in the policy, that you can't have it in events.
Like at a football game or something?
Yeah, a football game,
really?
Which is awesome. I love that. Because where are you going to run into trouble? I mean, you're going to run into trouble everywhere, but potentially. or there's a possibility.
Well, and a college campus is
trouble.
such a unique environment. I mean, because you have people who are usually in there anywhere from 18 to 30-ish, usually. And especially if you're living there full time or even close to campus. I mean, you may be there late at night, or you may go through campus, in the middle of the night or something like that to go from one person's house to another or whatever. You have football games, you have homecoming, you have a lot of tailgating, a lot of events with a lot of different kinds of people. So it really is kind of a unique microcosm of life, and so it's interesting to see that Kansas has really thought about all of this and set this all out and has this, really long policy with all this information and this huge FAQ that people can consult. So,
I find it kind of interesting. You guys know who Steven Crowder is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if the listeners don't know who he is, maybe watch a few of his videos. I find him entertaining and also a little educational at the same time. Anyway, he does the whole Change My Mind series, right? And so they talked about one of his more recent one was the rape culture. Rape culture doesn't exist. Change My Mind. And so he went to one of the campuses in Texas. I don't remember where they were in Texas. But, obviously there was some uproar, some uneasiness. And one girl just, was completely upset that he was there and told him he wasn't supposed to be there, and the cops got called and stuff and pretty much told the girl, hey, if you don't like what he's talking about, you can
walk
leave.
away.
Yeah. So they talked for a while, and her claim was obviously that rape culture exists. She knows a bunch of girls on campus that have been raped and it never gets resolved. So these states that are not allowing it or ignoring that issue, they say that women's rights, they're a champion for women, but here they're taking the opportunity for these women to defend themselves away. You know what I'm saying? So
interesting.
I find it interesting that maybe that part of the argument has been brought up, but the campus police can't do a whole lot of, usually campus police, there's not a lot of them anyways.
Sure.
And they can't see everything all the time. I mean, it's not Skynet, right? It doesn't. Right. It's not going to happen.
Well, it was interesting. I was reading a couple different articles about campus carry, and there was more than one woman who was talking about how they feel safer having a firearm on them, especially if they're walking to or from class late at night. I think there was one woman who was unfortunately the victim of an assault of some kind or another, and she was quoted in saying she had every confidence that if she had her firearm, she would have been able to stop the attack. She was, I can't remember exactly what it was. I don't have it in front of me, but there was an assault of some kind that was, she was walking from her classroom to a parking garage or something, and somebody was there, And I remember in college, you'd hear about people getting attacked or mugged or assaulted every once in a while, at least a couple times a year.
Well, one is obviously too many.
Yeah,
right?
No matter what.
One is too many, and maybe a firearm wouldn't have stopped it or solved the issue or whatever, and maybe it could have made the issue way worse. But at least it gave the victim an opportunity to not be a victim. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. It's one of the quotes that kind of stuck with me, and actually kind of spiders off into a couple different directions, is that concealed carry is just all about personal protection, and it's having a right to defend yourself. There's actually another great website called Students for Concealed Carry, which is actually a group that's a lot more than just students. It's a group of students, faculty, staff, parents of students who all support the right to concealed carry on a college campus.
Yeah.
Which we're seeing. You can't deny it. We're seeing a huge jump in our freedoms. So it's not like, we have more freedoms today as far as carrying concealed than we did even 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So we should be happy about that states like Kansas are at least letting us.
I don't know if we're necessarily seeing an increase in it. I think it's just different.
Well, I think concealed carry in general is becoming more popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before that, it used to be more of an open carry carry.
It was kind of a prestigious club for a while, right? To have a concealed weapons permit was kind of oh man, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we've all carried for so long it doesn't matter anymore. I remember when I got my permit. Oh, it was a while ago.
Was it before the year 2000?
No. No, it would have been probably...
Are you trying to date him?
Yeah. No. Well...
Not court him, but...
Yeah, I'm taken. Sorry, Mark. No, it would have been mid-2000s, somewhere in there. Probably 2005, maybe even before that.
Yeah.
But it was almost like... It was like I've been bar mitzvahed, right? It's like I'm a man now. You know what I mean? But then I had to think about, man, that's not what it's about. Like it's not a I'm way cooler than you thing. It's a, oh man, I gotta have a little bit more responsibility now thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think that mystique is kind of leaving because more and more people conceal carry. There's way more classes for concealed carry classes out there now than there were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, definitely 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. You didn't hear a lot about concealed carry classes because it just really wasn't a thing. And I don't know if it's because the climate of, scary things seem to be happening more often, that people feel the need.
Well, there are a lot more shall issue states than may issue states than there used to be.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the tide of legislation has turned.
But I'm wondering if it's the perception of crime, because technically, if you look at the books, crime has dropped over the years. Like, there's less violent crime now than there was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
We've talked about that before, where it's mainly, I think, the media. And I said, I'm part of the media, but
we have 24/7 news now, right? Mm-hmm. CNN changed the world with the 24-hour cycle of news, and so now it's not necessarily that things happen more, it's just we hear about it more.
Right, and we're all more connected and can get instant communication. So, back in the day, if there was a mass shooting halfway across the country, there's a good chance you might not hear about it. Because your media consumption was only basically the newspaper and the news on TV or the radio. Now with the internet, and I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think necessarily that there's some agenda. I mean, some people obviously do have agendas, but I don't think there's some mass conspiracy to talk about violence more and more and more.
Yes and no.
Well,
I think the media, just like you said, I think there are some agendas in there to make it worse than it is. I think there's some painting in the media being done, creative painting with news stories.
Well, and I think what it is I see. So what I think it is it's more. You have to report it because the other people are going to, and you have to get those ratings and all that kind of stuff. But
you got to jump the scoop. You got to get the scoop before anybody else is, and then worry about the facts after that.
Well, and then the other thing is if they're trying to use violence and shootings and stuff to stop people from buying guns and get people against gun rights and anti-gun and all that. They're not doing a really good job, because if you look at after every single mass shooting, there's always a huge upsurge in firearm purchases and in concealed carry and in training classes.
Well, I think that's why during the Obama administration they did the choke point thing, Operation Choke Point, where they knew that if they started restricting financing to gun companies and ammunition manufacturers, pressuring banks to not give them money, that was the way they could do it. And then, because I know that Obama was the best gun salesman over the last 8 years. Absolutely, 100%. He sold more guns than anybody else could have. Mm-hmm. And people don't like to hear that, or they'll argue about it, because people were worried that he was going to change the laws. And so anytime there was a mass event, people absolutely visited gun stores and bought up a lot of stuff. Yeah, well, and I mean, nothing ever really ended up happening, so... Thank goodness. Yeah. So, but anyway, how this kind of all relates back to campus carry is that, I think a college... Back to what we really were talking about. I mean, mostly, you're talking about people who are 21 and older, who can legally carry, and college campus is like a little microcosm of society anyway. So, right. I mean, I think you should totally be able to carry. It's just I think what this Kansas University policy about carrying an unloaded
unloaded chamber or an empty chamber on a revolver or whatever is really just to cover their butts. It's all a liability.
Yeah.
And I can carry, but you got to do it this way, and they got to do everything they can, and
everything else. I read this lengthy. It's a lengthy policy, and I read it, and everything else other than those like 3 things that we listed
it's pretty
are
solid.
Spot on. I mean, Kansas has got it together for campus carry. They really do. Now,
anybody that spent time writing policy and procedures and standard operating procedures understand why they did that. It is definitely a safeguard for them to
cover your rear end.
It's a COA thing.
They'll reduce negligent discharges.
Well, and not to put people to sleep anymore, but if you go to the KU, it's concealedcarry.ku.edu. How great of a website is that, first of all? But second of all, it's an FAQ, like I've talked about a couple times now, but the first question is, how does KU policy differ from Kansas law? And I won't read the whole thing, but Kansas law requires public agencies, including state universities, to allow individuals age 21 and over to carry concealed handguns into facilities, blah, 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 blah. And then it goes, Board of Regents policy and university policy provide guidance on implementation of the concealed carry law, such as what constitutes appropriate concealment of a handgun, blah, 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 blah. A violation of policy may result in an individual being removed from the facility or denied entry.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Not arrested.
Right.
And not getting hauled off in handcuffs.
It says KU students and employees may also be subject to other university disciplinary action. And then, which I think is actually pretty cool, and basically what I think is so cool about this is the transparency of it. They're saying, okay, they respect the freedom to protect yourself and to carry concealed if you make that decision, but they really go into all these questions and like, because the next question is, why is the weapons policy needed? And it says KU has had a formal weapons policy since 1999. The new concealed carry policy identifies circumstances under which adequate security measures prevent concealed carry and other specific ways to implement the policy as allowed by the Kansas Board of Regents policy, blah, blah. I mean, it's a kind of legalese, but basically it's saying we need a way to kind of codify, what we think is best and define expectations and, repercussions for violating it, So there's a couple FAQs that I copied off too from that same site that I wanted to read. I think these are important to Todd's question. The first one is so this is the question right here. Making restrictions on the condition of the firearm, such as mandating an unloaded chamber, goes against the benefit of carrying a concealed firearm. Amen.
Yes.
That's the benefit of a concealed carry firearm is to use it quickly because things escalate fast, and that's
seconds.
That's what you'll see in the active self-protection video.
Yeah, if you're carrying with one not in the chamber, you're just carrying a 3-inch asp. That's it.
But so what's interesting is that actually that's a statement from their FAQ.
Yeah. So
which
this
is nice.
But so then there's a question.
And then they go on. How is it legal that KU can make the concealed carry policy stricter than state law? So this is where they're saying, yes, we differ from state law. And then this is their answer. The law does not specify several aspects, such as the state of the firearm or how concealed is consistently defined. Concealed is in quotations, meaning these concepts are open to interpretation through Regents and KU policy. The Kansas Attorney General, who has the authority to issue opinions regarding Kansas state law, has issued an opinion authorizing such restrictions. But policy, not law. So, and then the next question, the next FAQ is, what happens if a student carries a concealed firearm or concealed weapon illegally or violates KU policy? And then this is the answer. Individuals who violate the Kansas Personal and Family Protection Act will be asked by law enforcement to leave campus with their weapon. Those who refuse to leave will be cited for trespass. Faculty, students, and this is what you were talking about, faculty, students, and staff who violate the law or KU policy may also be subject to disciplinary actions as outlined in university codes and rights and responsibilities. And I have first-hand experience actually with that. with being asked to leave by a law enforcement officer.
Really?
Yeah.
Ricky got in trouble.
I was in, and actually it's the same here in Kansas too. This is the same thing that I'm going to talk about. But in Colorado, they passed where you could carry on state campuses. I was visiting a campus. This was when I was in gunsmithing school. Mm-hmm. I was visiting a different campus. I had a concealed firearm and I had my permit. And, but my firearm wasn't fully concealed. You could see the bottom edge of my holster, and I was definitely printing.
Sure.
But the officer came up to me, and when he was walking up to me, I knew I was fully within my rights to do what I was doing, so I wasn't scared about that. But when he was approaching, I was like, "Oh, great, here we go. What are we going to hear now?"
Here we go.
And he was super polite, and he said, "Sir, are you step back here really quick?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I stepped back with him, and he said, Are you carrying a firearm right now? And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Do you have your concealed carry permit?" And I pulled it out and showed him. And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I noticed that I could see your holster at the bottom. When you carry on campus, it needs to be fully concealed, 100%." Right.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah, and I had no problem with that. So it's the same on Kansas. So what he said is, he's like, "Well, I'm going to ask you to step out. Go ahead and put your." I was like, "I have some business to do on campus, so I need to stay here." But he's like, "Just go ahead and step out, put your firearm in the glove box of your vehicle, and just lock the door, and then you can come back in and complete your business." I could have now. Let's change that up a little bit. Say I didn't have a concealed carry permit. Now that's breaking law.
That's unlawful carrying of a firearm. Yeah.
So that's a big deal. That's a felony. But now say I did have a permit and he asked me to step out and I didn't do it. And I said, "No, it's my right." You know, there are people out there that want to take it to this and be ridiculous about this stuff.
The next level and be absolutely silly.
Then he's hauling you out in handcuffs and you're being arrested for trespassing because he's
possibly not evading arrest. What do you call it?
Resisting.
Yeah, that's a resisting arrest. Yeah, that could be easily put in there too.
Well, you're also just being a jerk, and whenever you're a jerk to a police officer, they have the power to make your day smooth and easy or a living hell.
Yep.
And if you're giving them crap and being a little rude and being one of those, they're gonna make your day a living hell. So, what I was looking up on my phone was I was curious with all this FAQ and info from Kansas University. And Todd, you picked a great school because I decided to go look at my alma mater's concealed carry laws. I went to Illinois State University in Central Illinois. Go Redbirds. And, obviously concealed carry law got passed in 2013 in Illinois. And going through that class, I learned that it's basically easier to say where you can carry rather than a list where you can't carry because you can't carry anywhere in Illinois. Yeah. Including like public transportation, you can't carry on the CTA trains in the city or on buses or trains or whatever. Yeah. But anyway.
Unless you're a bad guy because they carry everywhere.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't follow the rules. They've been able to carry in Illinois for decades. Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't know that.
Yeah, it's weird.
But I was curious.
Well, I've forgotten how to carry a gun because I've lost them all.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
In
you
that
carry the holster
accident.
around.
An empty holster.
Yep, empty holster.
Well, I have my approved. You can see my finger gun.
Careful
here.
where you point that finger gun there, buddy.
It's not loaded.
You can get in trouble for that. Famous last words.
Yeah. The hammer was cocked, though.
Yeah, it sure was.
But I haven't figured out the safety. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just curious because obviously, 2013, the Concealed Carry Act was passed in Illinois, and this basically, the policy is outlined pretty quickly. It's all one page. It's not very long, but it basically says, the university maintains a weapons and firearms-free policy for all university property. All persons covered by this policy, unless authorized by law or a specific exception in this policy, are prohibited from possessing, storing, carrying, or unlawfully using any weapon or firearm on university property or any vehicle owned by the university, even if that person has a valid federal or state license to possess or carry a firearm.
Wait, so cops can't carry?
Well, there's exceptions, and then it goes into saying,
basically just law enforcement.
Yeah, it's law enforcement, and then it says, it does say, the individual has a valid concealed carry permit, and there's not a posted sign at the entry to the parking lot that prohibits concealed firearms in the parking lot. But that's about storing in your car. So you can store a firearm in your car in a lockbox.
Yeah, the problem is you park in the parking lot and you get out and then you take you retrieve your gun from your holster to put it in your lockbox, and somebody sees you with a firearm in your hand, then you're done. And
you freak out, and they freak out, and then the cops are called, and that's what a lot of people were actually talking about in Illinois when that was being passed, was that, okay, if I can put it in my car, like, how the heck am I supposed to do that? Or like, they're like, well, take it out of its holster, or take your holster out and put it in the trunk. It's like, well, everybody's going to see me doing that. Like, how the hell am I supposed to do that without people freaking out? You know what I mean? So I just was curious about my alma mater's weapons policy.
But again, that's only policy, or is that law?
No, it's policy.
Okay.
I think the violation of the policy means you'd be asked to leave. So.
But honestly, it's Illinois, so it could easily bleed over into state law problem.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, and there, like I said, there's so many places in Illinois you can't carry. It's just,
it's sad.
It is a little sad. But I mean, I also came up with a solution to this. One in the chamber problem while we were talking.
What's that?
Carry a revolver.
It had to be closed on
an empty cylinder.
Okay, that's
fine.
I
guess it's still a double act if you have a double action.
When you're going to draw, you're not just going to pull the trigger once, are you?
I'm going to pull till I can't. There's nothing left.
Exactly. So
sorry. I'm going to shoot till the threat has stopped.
Okay,
good job.
Right.
Good save.
So that's more than likely going to take more than one round, correct?
Usually, statistically, yes.
So I'd rather have 5 rounds fast, where I don't even have to think about it, rather than 17 where I have to rack the slide.
Yeah, so a revolver might be the way to go to stay within policy and still defend yourself.
And still be able to defend yourself. And
you can get one of those Smith & Wesson 8-shots.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going with a classic 6-shooter, but you're right. You could get as many as you wanted.
Or a Ruger 22 that's got the 10 or 9-shot.
Yeah. Or you could just do the New York reload and carry 2.
Yeah,
that'd be fine too. But
is there any policy about carrying more than one firearm?
That's a good question.
Anything in that policy?
I don't think there was. I didn't see any.
So you could carry if you wanted.
You could carry your revolver on an empty cylinder.
Yep.
And then have your semi-automatic as your backup. So once you run out of your,
once you hit behind cover.
Yeah, there you go.
There, see, you're
Todd,
golden.
we got you fixed, man.
Yeah.
You're good.
So Todd, just buy a revolver. Buy a nice Smith & Wesson.
Now this is with a caveat. If you want to stay within policy. Now here's my
and this is tell you to break policy, and then you're going to get expelled, and then you're going to sue us, and we're not going to have a podcast anymore. Thanks, Ricky.
He won't be able to sue because he won't have a good job because he didn't graduate college.
Because he got kicked out.
And you're halfway right actually. This is. And you take it with a grain of salt, obviously.
Todd, listen to me. Listen to me, Todd. It's okay if you don't graduate college. I never went to college.
And look at him. He's in a blanket tent at his house.
That's besides the point. But I've owned 3 businesses, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's true. You don't have to go to college, but I'm guessing if you're there for this long, for more than a semester, you probably want to finish.
I think he's in his 4th year, isn't he?
Did he? I don't
know if he ever said. Maybe not.
I don't think he did, but regardless.
And I hope he's not majoring in like
criminal justice.
No, something like interpretive Indonesian native dance or something.
Dance. Hey, you know what? If he wants to carry, I don't care what he studies. That's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, no, Todd, don't be offended at me, Todd. Don't hate me.
Here's what my take is on it. I'd rather have my life than and be able to defend myself than be in fear of somebody's policy that just is going to get me expelled from the school. Well,
Ricky, you and I belong to the same religion. And policy there says that it's inappropriate to carry a firearm inside of a building, inside of a house of worship.
Is it really?
Yeah, but I don't always follow that policy.
Well, I carry at church.
I refuse to be a victim.
Yep.
No, and that's the thing is, and I was reading a lot of these pro concealed carry groups and a lot of articles about it, because, and maybe it was a little bit of bias, but I didn't really find all that many on against concealed carry at college campuses.
Well, I was perusing the interwebs earlier today, and I found a report from Everytown, so it's good.
Oh yeah.
About it was some ridiculous leftist professors did this study, a case study on how campus carry is pointless and firearms don't stop mass shootings and all this. I had to stop reading it. I know it's good to get perspective and understand what the other side thinks, but oh man, I just stopped. It was ridiculous.
Getting a little heated?
No, it was just so stupid. I mean, here's these intellectuals. No offense to the college students out there. But maybe offense to the professors. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, we know that the defensive gun use is extremely higher than what's reported.
Right, and that's that CDC article that we've talked about before, the CDC study that just got released this year.
Well, even
6,000 times a day, firearms are used to stop.
Looking at these, and I've been watching these active self-protection videos, and I'm like, holy cow, he is not running out of material.
No, and he never will.
This stuff is happening all the time. Defensive gun uses, and it's amazing. And he's steering more on the side where rounds are actually put down range. He doesn't go into as much into just the display of a firearm.
Yeah,
sure.
And we know from was it John Lott who did the research other than the CDC?
John Lott, yeah.
About defensive gun use being, it's not always having to be deployed in its lethal form. Just the display of a firearm,
the
like
presentation,
can stop a threat.
Well, and so that's what in this article that I found on the dailysignal.com from a nice woman named Amy Swearer. She's a legal policy analyst at the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So this is commentary from her, but she went over a little bit about actually Colorado and its Concealed Carry Act in 2003 that was passed. Apparently, the University of Colorado tried to get exempted from allowing concealed carry on its campus because
thanks, Colorado,
because it threatened the tranquility of the educational environment in an intimidating way and contribute in an offensive manner to an unacceptable climate of violence. But then the next paragraph in this article talks about how Colorado State University, who allowed it, experienced a 60% drop in reported crimes.
Interesting. But it was only reported because people were too scared to report the crime.
Right. But then U of C who continued to prohibit students from defending themselves with firearms until 2012 because of a Colorado Supreme Court ruling, experienced a 35% increase in reported crimes.
Interesting.
So, and then this is kind of interesting how they put this. In other words, it appears that the University of Colorado created a more threatening and intimidating educational environment by banning firearms than CSU did by allowing students to effectively defend themselves. And then they actually cite the CDC report from this year about how guns being used between 500,000 and 3 million times a year. Talk about John Lott a little bit, everything we just talked about. So thought that was kind of an interesting statistic. I mean, obviously all three of us are going to agree that you have a right to defend yourself and you should exercise that right, and all three of us refuse to be a victim.
And
do you think there's any place... Oh, go ahead, Ricky.
I was just going to say, with the caveat that the listeners understand, none of us are lawyers.
Right.
And this is not legal advice. So, Todd,
it's strictly our opinion.
Yeah, when you hear my opinion, like Steve said, it is just an opinion. I'm telling you what I would do personally.
Right. Yeah, we're not an advice show, and we're not going to tell you what to do. So,
we're not Dr. Lore or anything like that.
Steve, you had a question, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think there's ever a place where it would be inappropriate to try and defend yourself? Can you think of anywhere?
Nope.
Nothing comes to mind. I mean, but and the reason being is that when you have to defend yourself, you don't get to choose the setting.
Sure. So is that what you're saying? Is what I'm hearing is by nature, you want to defend yourself from harm.
Oh yeah.
True? Okay.
Yeah.
So you would think that that all that hear arguments for the ability to defend oneself, you think they would all come to a unanimous decision that it's a natural instinct for defense.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
But I guess their perception is as well. We'll make sure that the authorities can protect you.
Well, and you know what's
doesn't work.
You know what's interesting is I bet you that they allow students to carry pepper spray. Or
yeah, they do. They do. That is in their policy.
But certain schools that maybe don't allow firearms, maybe they allow other, weapons.
I'd be curious because I doubt they would allow them to carry knives. Like I doubt.
No, that's in the policy. So
well for Kansas.
For Kansas,
For Kansas, and you can carry a knife at Kansas.
No,
you can't carry a knife at Kansas.
You can't. Well, so I'll read it to you. So. Any knife, I think this is
over so many inches.
Any knife commonly referred to as a switchblade, which has a blade that opens automatically by hand pressure applied to a button, spring, or other device in the handle of the knife. Or any knife.
Autoloaders are spring assisted.
Yeah.
Or any knife having a blade that opens or falls or is ejected into position by the force of gravity or by an outward, downward, or centrifugal thrust.
He has his master's degree. Sorry. That was mean.
He can read. You and Steve are full of
audience.
Offense tonight, and I decided to take offense at that.
That's how you know I'm a Ricky. That's how you know I'm a rancher.
That's right.
I have lots of fences.
And then it says any straight blade knife of 4 inches or more, such as a dagger, dirk, dangerous knife,
or stiletto.
So
I'm guessing they're talking about fixed blades.
Is that a knife or is that a high heel?
That's a shoe.
It's a shoe.
No, it was a knife first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was an edged weapon first, and then
I'm like, man, they have something against high heels.
See, the two college guys looked at each other in confusion there. So more proof you don't need to go to college.
School's for dumb kids.
Yeah, it sure is.
Okay, except that an ordinary pocket knife or culinary knife designed for and used solely in the preparation and or service of food shall not be construed to be a weapon for the purpose of this policy.
There lies the loophole of the knife in schools.
Yep. But
I'm just simply carrying my chef knife because I'm going to go cook later on.
Carry it in your backpack. So
yeah, but pretty soon we'll get like London where you can't even carry a butter knife.
Man, I don't think.
Did you hear about that in France that they a police officer or police chief or somebody died, and they didn't want to talk about it. Now this is kind of just hearsay. I just read a blurb on it this morning. They didn't want to talk about it because they were worried it was going to offend certain religious population in France. So they would not advertise or talk about this policeman's funeral.
Really?
Because they were worried about offending somebody.
Are you sure they were worried about offending somebody or about like some sort of
maybe retaliatory or something?
Yeah, some sort of action.
And that could be. I don't know. I have to dig it back up. I can't even remember where I read it today.
Yeah.
So no knives. That's probably
you can carry a little pocket.
No
knife,
throwing stars or nunchucks.
No,
so you would not be able, because those are the things that you had that didn't get lost in the boat accident.
Well, because my nunchucks floated.
Yeah.
You were able to pick those up. Yeah. Throwing stars, on the other hand, those are at the bottom of the lake, too.
Well, I just use saw blades. They're close enough.
Oh, there you go. So I wanted to bring this. I brought it up earlier, but there's if you're listening, you should check out this website, Students for Concealed Carry. They have a whole huge page about common arguments against campus carry. And they basically just debunk every single argument that you could basically think of.
I like these kids.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Where did it go? It says,
I see a bright future in politics for these young people.
It says it's unlikely that allowing concealed carry on college campuses could help prevent a Virginia Tech-style massacre because most college students are too young to obtain a concealed handgun license.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So they basically talk about how 19 of the 32 victims of the Virginia Tech massacre were over the age of 21. And it's impossible to know, whether somebody with a concealed carry permit could have stopped him or not. But this is what stuck with me for the whole thing. It's important to remember that concealed carry is about personal protection, not public protection. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get much simpler than that. It's about personal protection, and that's all it boils down to. I think there's a lot of people who either don't understand it or are against it for whatever reason, that try to blow it up and make it this huge thing that there's going to be blood in the streets, or that, blah, 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 blah. But it goes back to a choice on how you want to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple.
So let me bring this up to you. Tell me what you guys think. So recently I visited a gun show. Okay?
Yeah.
Now this isn't hypothetical. This is legit. This happened to me.
Okay.
So obviously they had a hired security force there, which I completely understand.
Sure.
And they had a guy posted at the door. Now he didn't say ask me any questions, and if you guys know me, I tend to carry everywhere I go. Naturally. So we paid our way in. First we thought he was the guy taking the money. He's like, nope, go over there. They'll take your money. Okay. So we went over there and we got in. And as I came around, he was sitting at a table, and you kind of have to walk behind him to get to the gun show. I hear him asking everybody else, you guys can still carrying today? And then he was having them unload and show clear.
Really?
At a gun show?
At a gun show.
What?
Now, because he didn't ask me, I did not tell him. What say you on that? Should I have said, hey, I'm carrying a gun?
Didn't ask.
I don't see any problem with it.
Didn't ask.
Yeah,
no reason to advertise.
My opinion is because he didn't ask me directly. I was with a couple other people. He didn't ask any of them either.
Why is...
So maybe he thought the other people looked sketchy.
No.
Was there a policy against concealing?
There was nothing posted. There's nothing posted in the building. I'm not going to tell you what state this took. It was not in Idaho. It took place in a different state.
Utah.
I'm not saying what state it was in.
Kentucky.
But there was. I looked. There was nothing posted. No, I'm not welcome in Kentucky anymore.
Yeah, they sold toothbrushes. Teeth brushes at this.
Yeah, not toothbrushes, but teeth brushes. So I felt like, hey, he didn't ask me. I'm not gonna divulge any information. It's none of his business.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, if it's fully legal to carry there and they didn't ask, then...
So let me pose another question to you. What's more dangerous? Allowing people to carry or to keep their loaded firearms in their holster and not handle them, or have them take them out and show clear, so now they have to take their magazine out, unload the chamber? What's potentially going to cause more accidents? And that was exactly
my thoughts, because I was kind of glancing over there to see what was going on.
Yep.
And you got old people fumbling with their semi-autos, getting magazines out. It was an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say my firearm's empty right now, but have to fiddle around with it, pull it off. If you don't clear that holster properly, you're going to sweep somebody behind you. You're going to sweep somebody in front of you. No matter if you're in a crowded building, you're going to sweep somebody anywhere. I'm not pointing it at Ricky. I'm making it a point to
He just pointed it at you though, Steve.
And maybe because I'm hypersensitive.
Steve pointed his finger gun at you though earlier.
I know.
Maybe because I'm hypersensitive, because I've worked ranges, I've worked gun counters for so long.
Sure.
I can see the hazard more. No offense to the rent-a-cops, but that's pretty much what it was, right?
Sure.
I don't know what maybe they were, off-duty police officers.
It sounds to me like this guy was taking a little bit more authority than what he was supposed to.
Yeah, well, he was probably asked to do it.
I just wonder why
by the facility or their own security protocol.
Maybe it was unsafe. Maybe he saw them. Maybe he could see them printing, or could obviously see a holster. Whereas maybe
because I was really good at not printing.
Hey, you're carrying on your hip. You're not carrying appendix.
I know, because I RSO'd tonight. That's why
he was open carrying.
Yeah,
I care when I'm on the range. I open carry.
Yeah,
I want people to see that I capable.
It's all right here. Yeah.
You're packing heat.
That's right. So Todd, we solved your problem basically.
Or we just generated more
Confused
confusion.
him more.
Yeah.
We gave him a dilemma.
So let's go through
The
his question
dichotomy
again.
of campus carry.
Yeah, we are in full support of campus carry as long as you're following all the rules and policies.
And for the most part, I'm all in favor for what Kansas has done.
And
Yeah, I don't know, because listening to Ricky, he's more in favor of following state law, but policies can be a gray area.
right, Ricky. So Ricky would probably break the policy. I know Steve would break the policy.
Or I just wouldn't go.
You just wouldn't go. I would carry a revolver. Easy
Do you know what the
peasy.
beauty thing is online classes, they never ask me, or there's no policy about online classes that can still
Steve,
carry.
you just brought up a good point. Now, obviously, Todd, I mean, he picked a college that maybe he offered him a scholarship, or it has the program he needs.
Maybe he
fit
just
his
liked
needs.
the Jayhawks.
Maybe.
it fit his needs, and there's a reason he's going there. But like, say, a movie theater or a restaurant that has that policy posted on the door, which one am I gonna? Maybe I'll avoid that one because that's where the bad guys are gonna go, because they say, "Hey, look at that sticker," And I don't want to get in a gunfight. I'm not packing a gun around with me so I can get in a gunfight.
Yeah, and we talked about that last week about how predators will go for the easiest prey. And I mean, if you think about it, let me put it this way. If we go through the mindset and think about, okay, if there's a place where that there's no guns, that's probably the best place to go. And we're not criminals. Professional criminals are people who are, aiming on doing bad things. That's obviously where they're going to go.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was a John Stossel when he was with 60 Minutes or something, and they went to a prison, and they were talking to all the bad guys in prison, and they asked him, what if there was firearms were in every home? Well, we just wouldn't go to that house. We don't break in. They go for least resistance. That's part of human nature too, right? That's the predator mentality. We search out for the weakest, and when I look at pizza slices, I look for the weakest pizza slice, and that's the one I go for.
Well,
I look for the biggest.
It's funny you bring that up, because I was going to talk about just in general in life, how much do you go with the path of least resistance? I mean, you could make a bunch of food at home or grab fast food, and when you're tired and you don't want to deal with it, you're going to go grab McDonald's or go grab Domino's.
Yeah.
Well, but
notice we don't always think about the risks when we take those paths of least resistance. I think of when you were talking about that, I was thinking about offensive driving. People on the freeway.
Oh yeah.
They don't think about the other guy. There's a spot in that lane. I'm getting over right now, and they'll go as fast as they can. They don't think about risks. They think about ease.
Yep.
What did you say you would do?
What do you mean?
In Todd's question?
Oh, well, see, so it's funny because I'm a rule follower and I don't like to get in trouble, which is weird because I was a horrible teenager. But
that makes for a great adults, though.
Well, here I am making good choices with you guys.
Aw.
But no, I would actually carry a revolver and carry on an empty chamber. So if anything ever happened, I could say with good conscience, I followed the law and the policy to a T. But I still can defend myself because I know that I would, if I had to pull that gun out and had to pull the trigger, it would probably more than likely get pulled more than once.
So now you bring this into more of a theological. Yeah, I think of it. I'm like, okay, because
now we're getting into Socratic theory. Here we go.
I think of religiously, religiously speaking.
Okay.
You're being honest and I'm not. Right,
Sure,
in my
I
decision.
guess. Yeah.
So
Ricky, you're going to hell, man. You're going to hell.
I believe in God, and I believe someday we're gonna be standing before Him, and we're gonna be answering for our choices.
If you want to go that way, but you're doing what you believe is right.
It's true.
So would you?
Yeah. What if you save a life? That totally trumps any of the rules.
That's true. Everything, you can break all of law to save one life.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that part
That's
of
the law.
You can break the law to save a life. That's the law. Man,
I used cocaine, but I saved my buddy's life in an overdose.
Well, I was on it, so it's a true story from Steve.
It is.
Again, I'll never be president now. That's a soundbite that I'll never be able to become president.
But I do like how we differ because it does. I mean, you have to know what you're willing to do in your mind. And see, and that's the thing is, so Steve, when he was talking about going down to Salt Lake, down to the state of Utah, to this gun show that he won't mention the state of.
I didn't say it was Utah.
Anyway, so anyway, he's talking about this. Now, if he was carrying concealed, and I've been in situations like this, and say he knew that it was against the policy to carry concealed,
Yeah.
and there's that officer right there, there's no signs, it's just against the policy, not law. What is Steve's reaction going to be when he walks straight past that officer versus your reaction? Now,
God,
Steve,
I don't know.
Steve will probably, who cares, and he'll go right past the
I don't know
officer.
what I would do.
Will it affect you so mentally so much that you just,
I don't know.
you start getting a little
I'm already getting keyed up about it.
I go to the mall all the time. Well, not all the time. There's stickers on the door, gun-free zone. I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
I walk through the mall, and I don't care.
I mean, I've carried in the mall before, but I just...
What's the worst that can happen, right? They're going to trespass me out of the mall, and I can't go to the mall anymore.
Well, I think they can't arrest you because of a policy like we just talked about, but they can ask you to leave. Okay, I guess I'm going to leave.
The worst that could be is maybe trespassing.
Or they'd say, go put your firearm in your car and then come back.
Yeah, and that's when I say, I'm a host of a podcast that reaches out to 10, 15,000 people. Maybe they'd be interested in this story.
Yeah, that's true. I thought you were going to say the real numbers of 10 to 15 people.
No. Well, we have the potential. We have the potential. I should say, I'm one of the hosts of a podcast that reaches international listeners.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Because Chris listens, and he's
awesome.
in Australia.
That's right.
So, hey.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it just comes with more confidence in carrying. But like I said, I'm also a rule follower. I don't know. Like, it just...
Well, and that's why, I was appendix carrying, and you couldn't tell.
Sure,
So obviously,
think,
if I was printing a little bit, if I had a T-shirt on, he probably said, "Hey, are you still carrying today?"
Right.
And I'd have said, "Maybe."
I wonder what his reaction would be.
You don't look like the type to carry concealed. You're too nice looking.
I'm a devilishly handsome man, aren't I?
Yeah, sure are. I don't know what I would do.
That's weird that you agreed with that.
Well, I don't know. I'm a people pleaser too. I'm just a weak man, okay? Jeez.
Yeah.
No, I guess it also would depend on where I'm going, but I want to end with this because
we've been trying to figure out where you're going for a long time.
Nowhere. I remember a time when I was in college, and I lived with 3 other people, 2 girls, 2 guys, or 2 girls, 1 guy, and me.
Math was not your strong suit.
No, it sure wasn't. That's why I'm in podcasting. It's also like 10:30 at night. I'm tired. But anyway, and one of the girls was kind of sketchy. She was friends with sketchy people. They would come over at all hours of the night. That kind of stuff.
She was an artist, huh?
Something like that, yeah. And I remember
sketchy.
She was. Oh, geez, dad
He's telling
jokes.
his dad jokes.
Somebody's got to enjoy them.
Somebody came over at like 2:00 in the morning, pounding on the door, woke me up.
Not cool.
And I didn't know any better. And I remember answering the door just for no reason. And they asked if so-and-so was there. And I was like, no, she's not here, blah, blah, blah. Because she wasn't. And they said, okay, cool, bye, or whatever. And then I closed the door, and I immediately thought to myself, that could have been anybody in the entire world. They could have came to rob me, kill us, set the building on fire, could have done anything. And that was the moment that I realized that I wanted a gun. It was in college.
That's awesome. I mean, so it could have ended way worse.
It could have, and I'm thankful that it didn't. But that just goes to show that things happen in college just like they happen everywhere in the real world. So you should be able to carry or at least have a firearm in college, if you're responsibly and legally able to do so.
Tom, you're talking about what your experience there at the door, right? So Tom Gresham on Gun Talk, he had this week was pretty interesting, and it's bad salesmanship to refer you to somebody else to listen, but this was very interesting. He talked about home invasions violent home invasions. And now what's happening more and more is it used to be, one person would be the perp to a violent home invasion. And now they're going in groups of 6, 7, 8, 10 people, and they're dressing up as officers.
Really?
And they're saying they're the cops to get through the door, and then once they're in the house, they'll do whatever they want.
Man. Even better reason to own an AR.
And maybe that's something that we should do. We could have even a podcast on or something at some point. Is we could study up on those home invasions and make sure the way he was talking about it's happening more and more frequently. So I can't attest to the validity of that, but.
Well, we can dive into that and see, and maybe we can do kind of a home invasion episode.
Well, and I also heard that a lot of home invaders now are actually watching the homes. They watch the lights.
They stake them out.
Yeah, they watch them and they watch the lights, and they watch all the lights shut off, watch the house until all the lights shut off, then they wait about 10 minutes and they break in then, because they know that's when people are just getting down to bed and they're going to be at their most vulnerable time at that right now. So,
and I'm going to be helpless because I lost all my guns in that boating accident.
Yeah, so don't ever think about going to Steve's house at all.
Well, you're not going to find any cool shit anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, on that note, I think we can close. So, Todd, I hope we did your episode justice. If I were you, I would carry a revolver on an empty chamber, but Steve and Ricky would take the less honest approach.
Well, not necessarily, but I would recommend, nonetheless, getting as much training as possible. If you plan to carry Israeli style, train.
Definitely. Train as much as you can. And I would say, too, that even if you only have a semi-auto and I would say carrying anything is better than not carrying at all.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're not going to go the revolver route, regardless, watch the active self-protection video that Mark will link to.
Yep.
It'll open your eyes. You need to have one in the chamber.
And also, I will say, if you are going to college or in college or even visiting somebody in college or your son or daughter or friends or whatever, look up and do your research on that specific policy. Because it's probably going to vary. It's definitely going to vary from college to college. And so you might be able to carry on your own campus, or maybe you have a son or daughter and you want to carry while you're there.
Okay. Before we close, this is a question I want to pose to everybody. So Steve was talking about self-defense. Now, you brought up a good point, Mark. If you were sending your daughter
to college, and this same policy existed, what would you tell her to do? Here's a revolver.
I would say go right past that policy and you carry one in the chamber.
Yeah.
But I would make sure that she was a responsible gun owner and that was trained and learned how to manipulate a firearm and how to carry a firearm. And I'd say, do what you can do.
And not only that, hopefully you've taught her correct principles to where she learns to avoid situations as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. And escape and evade if need be.
And Todd, one more thing before we sign out here. This might be a great opportunity for you with other classmates and kids in the school. Maybe you can create a group or find a group to get involved with as far as a group of carriers. Or maybe it's something you can do to petition the school to allow you to visit state law or policy to change that whole non-chambered rule.
Yeah, check out Students for Concealed Carry. See if there's what other kind of policies are in different colleges.
There's got to be great groups already over there that
100%
are working on this and get involved, man. Be a part of it.
Yeah. But thank you for writing in. And if you're listening and you have an idea for a podcast or want to ask us a question or anything like that, send us an email to podcast@iishooting.com or check us out on Facebook at Independence Indoor Shooting, or, and this is a surprise for you guys, but the new up-and-coming Range Minded Podcast Facebook page.
Yeah.
So we're
now, make sure you also tell people how much you enjoy my dad jokes.
Oh, God, no. No dad jokes.
Come on.
It takes me back to the day of growing up.
I thought we could breeze past the fence one that you did, but no, you had to come up with a second one. So
a fence? What did he say?
He said he took a fence. That's how he knows he's a rancher, because he has got a fence.
I didn't even get that.
Oh, jeez.
This is why I do the dad jokes.
Okay, so that might be worth it. That might be worth it for that reason. Yeah. But and Todd, make sure you share the podcast with all your friends too.
Yeah, please do.
So, but thank you again, and we will talk to you all next time.
See you guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. If you've got a comment, question, idea for the show, or any feedback, send us an email to podcast@iishooting.com or send us a message on our Facebook page. Just search Independence Indoor Shooting. Again, thanks for listening to Range Minded. We'll see you next time.